I don't know when it all started. Maybe it was that moment when Alex came over once again to help with the repairs, and our gazes met a little longer than they should have. Or when he stayed for dinner, and his hand accidentally brushed mine, making my skin burn. I told myself it meant nothing, that I loved Ethan, that it was just a game of my imagination. But with each passing day, the struggle became harder. I began noticing how my heart would race whenever Alex was near, how his voice would penetrate the deepest corners of my soul, filling me with a strange excitement. I blamed myself. I tried to hold it together, but the temptation was stronger. That night, when it happened, I hadn't planned anything. Ethan was staying late at work, and Alex came over again. We sat in the living room laughing, talking about something trivial, but inside me, there was a storm raging. I felt something, growing between us, becoming impossible to ignore. His gaze burned. His touches became bolder. No, I can't, I thought. But my lips found his lips. It was like falling into an abyss, scary, thrilling, inevitable. I knew I was making a mistake, betraying my husband, but the desire to melt into the moment was stronger. Alex held me in his arms, his hands sliding over my body, making me tremble. His breath burned my neck and I closed my eyes, giving myself over to the sensations. I was drowning in this madness, in his touches, in the guilt that both scorched me and pushed me towards even greater recklessness. But when morning came, reality hit me hard in the face. I looked at Alex and felt nothing but emptiness. Where was that all-consuming passion that had burned me from the inside? It was gone. All that remained was the realization of my own foolishness. This wasn't love. It was an illusion. An attraction built on prohibition, on the craving for something new, but not true closeness. Alex looked at me with the same expression in his eyes. He understood too. There was no joy, no happiness between us, only a residue of regret. Ethan started to notice the changes. He looked at me with questions in his eyes but didn't say anything. I could feel his worry, but I couldn't bring myself to confess. Everything inside me screamed that I had made a mistake. But what now? Everything fell apart the day I heard his voice, full of icy calmness. "You think I don't notice, Lily?" I froze, the wine glass trembling in my hand. Fear gripped my chest. "What do you mean?" I tried to answer in a steady tone, but my voice betrayed me. Ethan stepped closer to me, his eyes piercing right through me. "You cheated on me. With Alex, I know." I flushed hot. I couldn't breathe. The world stopped. "It's not..." I wanted to lie, but the words got stuck in my throat. "Don't try," he said bitterly. "I saw everything." The silence was deafening. I knew this moment would change everything. Suddenly the doorbell rang. I jumped. Ethan slowly looked at me, then turned and went to open the door. I stood frozen in place. My heart pounded wildly. "Hi, Ethan." Alex's voice came from the doorway. I closed my eyes. It was over. "Come in," Ethan said unexpectedly, calmly. I slowly turned around and saw Alex step into the living room, meeting my gaze. There was fear in his eyes. Or regret. "Sit down, Alex." Ethan gestured to the chair. "We need to talk." Alex sighed heavily and sat down. My hand trembled as I lowered myself onto the sofa. The silence was suffocating. I could feel that Ethan was on the verge of exploding. "Tell me everything." His voice was firm and cold. I looked at Alex. He looked at me. Neither of us dared to start. "I knew it." Ethan smirked bitterly. "Fine, then I'll say it. I want to know when it started and how long you've been lying to my face." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Alex was the first to find the strength to speak. "Ethan, it's not what you think." "Really?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Then explain to me what it is, because I saw everything with my own eyes." I clenched my fists, trying not to cry. My whole life was falling apart before my eyes, and I didn't know how to piece it back together. "How long, Lily?" Ethan's voice was distant. "How many months? Weeks? Or has this been going on for years?" I tried to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. "6 months," Alex suddenly said. I flinched and sharply turned my head towards him. He avoided my gaze. Ethan exhaled, ran a hand over his face, and slowly stood up. "I don't know either of you anymore," he said quietly. "Disappear from my life." I stared at him, knowing that I had lost everything. And for what? For an illusion that crumbled the moment reality stepped on the throat of passion? Alex was silent. He understood everything just as well as I did. We had both plunged into the abyss, and now we were drowning, unable to save ourselves. "What now?" Alex asked quietly. I didn't have an answer. I just didn't know how to move forward. Several weeks passed, but nothing changed. Ethan continued to behave coldly, keeping his distance and avoiding any contact. He was like a shadow in our home, and every glance from him seemed like an accusation. Every moment of silence felt like torture. I tried to talk to him, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was watch him and feel that the distance between us was growing. Alex, on the other hand, disappeared. I hadn't seen him. He stopped coming over, didn't try to call. I didn't know what he was thinking. But something inside me told me that his silence was also part of the separation, one we both couldn't avoid any longer. We had become strangers to each other, and that feeling of emptiness wouldn't leave me. One evening, as I sat at the dinner table in silence, Ethan, as usual, approached the table with a serious expression. He slowly sat down across from me, and I felt a knot tighten in my chest. "Lily, we need to talk," he said calmly, not looking at me. I knew this was the moment I had been avoiding for so long. All I wanted was for him to tell me that everything would go back to the way it was. But of course it doesn't work like that. "I think you've already made up your mind," he continued, his voice neither angry nor hurt, just empty. "We both know we can't go back. We've both lost what we had." I nodded, unsure of how to respond. This was all I wanted to hear, but when I heard it from him, it only made things harder. I felt something break inside me, but I couldn't quite say what it was. "I don't want to keep living a lie," Ethan said. "We both know you cheated on me, but I still can't just forget everything that happened between us. It won't just disappear." I don't know what to say. I glanced at his face, and seeing the pain in his eyes made it even harder for me. He gritted his teeth and finally spoke. "I can't forgive you, but I don't want you to leave. We need to decide what to do next. I'm not ready to let you go, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you for this, but I still love you, Lily." There was both strength and weakness in his words. I knew he couldn't forget what had happened, but he still wanted to be with me, and there was something agonizing about that. For both of us. "Do you think I can keep living with this guilt?" I whispered. "I destroyed everything. I can't be with you if you can't forgive me, and I can't be with you if you're going to remind me of my mistake every day." Ethan remained silent, and I saw tears fill his eyes. It was hard for both of us, but something in my heart finally started to release. "Maybe we should live separately for a while," he said. "We need time to figure out what we want." These words were a relief for me. I couldn't give him an answer right then, and maybe he wasn't ready to hear what I truly felt. But I understood that we both needed time to sort out our emotions and figure out what we really wanted from life. We sat in silence, not knowing what would happen next. But at some point, I realized that not everything was lost. I could still find myself. And maybe one day, we would find a path that would lead us to happiness, or at least peace.